Welcome to The Good Ride. I'm James Beastie, and today it's time to talk about Borealis's Snowsurf ride, the Pilot Fish, one of a few of their true Snowsurf rides. And when I first handled it, I was a little disappointed by its ultralight construction because I thought it wouldn't perform that well on snow, especially for my riding style. And I was pretty surprised to find that this is a very fun setback Snowsurf ride that, while isn't a damp board, it's still within that realm of acceptability. It has great pop, an incredibly satisfying turn on groomers, and a minimal taper in the tail. So the way you engage this side cut and turn when you're this far set back is incredibly satisfying. If you don't need the dampest board and you love to make fun, slow to medium speed turns like a lot of the Moss and Gentum stick snow surfers, but you want it at almost a third the price, this could be a great board for you. So I rode the Pilot Fish with my Nitro Team BOA boots and my Union Force bindings. Got this out for one day and one day only. At the time I had these boards, sometimes the mountain was closed for almost a week and there were horrible conditions. I didn't really get to test this the way I wanted to, but I got a few runs in the morning, got a few runs in the afternoon, compared this against the Leviathan. I'll have comparisons up on Patreon and on YouTube for paid members. So when it comes to sizing, this Pilot Fish in a 160 fit me super well. The waist width and the width over the front foot is very wide, but the width over the back foot is considerably narrower. And even though it only has 5 millimeters of taper, it felt easy for me to steer. And if they had a bigger size, I'd love to try it, but this was fine. I just wouldn't want to size down from here. And of course, this is my personal preference to give you context for the review. If you want to figure out your sizing, go to thegoodride.com. We have a guide that breaks everything down so you can figure out what might be best for you. So when it comes to construction, this is very ultralight, but it's at a very reasonable price. And I'm not sure how exactly they're doing it, but they have ABS sidewalls, good edges. This top sheet isn't quite ideal when it comes to durability. There is some scuffing happening around the inserts. This record vinyl type thing collects wax and other stuff on top of the top sheet, but at this price, I'm not gonna fault it at all. Now, when it comes to the shape, this is very directional, very set back on board. The stance location is way back towards this swallowtail, just like most snow surfers are. They're really trying to emulate where you stand on a surfboard in the ocean. This isn't very tapered. Most snow surf boards have a ton of taper. This only has 5 millimeters of taper. So while you're back on this tail, you do feel more tail behind you because of that extra width. For me personally, I really like that. For you, could be hit or miss, but I think most won't mind. There is a lot of camber going on here. It starts pretty much where the swallow ends, rises up quickly, so there's a lot of camber over the back foot that goes well past the front foot with early rise before this long nose. Even though it has a beginner intermediate price point, this is more of an advanced to expert ride. Maybe a committed intermediate willing to take some lumps like we all did back in the Camber days. This is very stable. This one foot's incredibly well off the chair. It flat bases really well down a long flat cat track. And because this only has 5 millimeters of taper, you don't really feel that triangle feel when you're going straight. It tracks better than most super tapered swallowtails. And I think a lot of people will appreciate this. And of course, this has a very consistent feel in all conditions. Now, when it comes to edge hold, there isn't much going on with the side cut. And while I feel it's competent, it's not quite as much of a gripper as a lot of other Borealis boards in their line. It's not as damp and the edge doesn't stay as quiet, but also there doesn't seem to be any kind of disruption in the side cut. Normally they have a mellow disruption. This one doesn't. It still handled hard snow pretty well, and it wasn't a board where I had to really be tentative, but I couldn't really go all out either. So mainly for medium hard to good snow. Let's talk Pilot Fish Flex here. It is medium soft. Down in the tails, it's medium stiff, but then you go on one and it's more medium soft. It's got a good bit of give. Then between the feet, there's a little give here, but it's close to this back part flex-wise. And then the nose is pretty soft, like so many powder-friendly Snowsurf style fishes. I found it was super easy to butter in the tail and the nose, and the pop, this dynamic poppy flex. It was just so easy to ollie. And when it comes to uneven snow, the Pilot Fish isn't very good. It's probably the worst board in Borealis's line, but at the same time, it's not that bad for being an ultralight by any means. In hard, micro bumpy snow that often sends chatter, this did a lot better than I thought. And maybe that has to do with the Kevlar in between the carbon strips going through this board, but whatever it is, it held this board at an acceptable level to where it didn't bother me too much. And then in soft uneven snow, yes, this can buck and bounce a little bit, but it held better than I thought. You definitely want to slow down though. Now this isn't a great board for the park at all, but if you want to carve some pipe walls or get some air, this is going to be fine, especially for being a snow surfer. You feel like you have more tail behind you. Now, when it comes to turning, this Pilot Fish was just a blast. I could initiate turns pretty quick with this. If I wanted to do a tight tree line, even in slightly uneven snow, this would be fine. This would be okay in some moderately steep, tight spots, but that's not really what these snow surfers are all about. And there are better boards for that, for quick turn initiation in critical steep spots. And when I got this on edge and really engaged this deeper, turny side cut, it was a blast. It was some of the best turning I had all year, and that really surprised me because usually boards like this I'm not that excited about, but this is such a flowy turner. I felt like I was turning at a much higher price point. It was so fun. The spring out of the turn is so satisfying, and you can front foot, center foot, or back foot weight your turns any way you please on this board, and it's gonna shine. And that's usually uncommon for snow surfers. They usually favor more front foot weighted turns or more back foot weighted turns, but this could do it all. I really didn't feel like I had an issue with any of them. It might be because of minimal taper in the tail and maybe some magic with the side cut. Whatever's going on, I'm not here to try to figure it out. I'm just gonna have fun on it, and it's super fun. And then the kind of radius turn you can make is definitely more for circle carves and across the groomer carves, but medium radius turns are very doable. Down the line turns aren't the best, but somehow this entry point into the side cut doesn't fight you too much, and it allows you to go straight well enough for a snow surf board. And then when you get into really pointing it and speed, this isn't made for that. It's just not what it's good for. There's a lot of chatter and vibrations. If you like to occasionally point it and you want a snow surf board, that's the Leviathan. It's bigger, it's meaner, it's faster, and it's more damp, and that's a super fun board as well. So the Pilot Fish is for those who really only straight line when they need to make a traverse or something like that. Then when it comes to the base glide, Borealis, now that they're out of GP87, makes incredible bases. I don't feel any die cut here. I don't know what they're doing, but I love it. These bases hold their wax well and glide very well, even though they're not even the high-end bases. I just really like them, and don't mind this weird rub-on wax that I have. Now, when it comes to powder float, like I've said in almost every review, I took out the Leviathan first, hoping that I might have time for the Pilot Fish, but it was tracked up in less than a half an hour. But I just know this is gonna be a very good floater. If it's lower angle, I definitely wanna be on the Leviathan. But if this is medium angle, or it's a tree day, I wanna size down from that 64 Leviathan and go with the 60 Pilot Fish. You've got such a huge cutout in this swallowtail, so there's very little surface area behind you in powder, and this is just gonna sink super easy. Then you have this big floaty nose with kind of an interesting little point that almost seems like it has a little bit of curve to it at the very tip. It seems like it's gonna help with that turning experience. Then you have a little early rise before this nose, and while there's a lot of camber, you're very set back, and you have mini disc compatible setback inserts, basically 6x2 with one setback, 20 mil apart instead of 40. So they work with full-size, medium, or mini discs. And when you're this far back, it should just float like a champ. And overall, this board really surprised me. It's super fun. It's a very reasonable price. And while it's chattery and bucky, it's manageable for an ultralight. And I think a lot of people on a budget, especially advanced expert riders that want a really good snow surf board, and they want some of that Gentum stick and moss feel, but at a reasonable price, you have the Pilotfish. Highly recommendable, super fun ride.
What's up guys, Joe Fossby here with the 2027 Borealis Pilotfish snowboard. I'm here to give you a small guy's take on this thing, and let me tell you, it really impressed me. I'm 5'6", weigh 125 pounds, and wear a size 7.5 Deluxe Edge Pro boot. I'm typically not the biggest fan of swallowtail snowboards because I like the extra landing gear of a blunted tail, even on my powder boards, and I like the ability to take the powder boards out even on days that it didn't just snow to carve those groomers. I do like being able to throw the board around switch, and anytime I'm on a swallowtail, I'm always a little less confident looking down at what looks like a fork stabbing into the snow compared to a knife slicing through it. But I did not catch my edge at any point on this thing when I did throw it around switch, and let me tell you, it does provide a really cool effect. It's such a cool feeling when you know there's no question everybody on the mountain knows you're riding that board backwards. Not only does it look cool on the ground, but in the air it looks really cool as well. Once you get this thing up into the air and you've got that swallowtail flying, it just looks like a fish out of water. Tons of fun. Really cool. As I mentioned, while the board is not something I would typically invest in for my personal quiver, I later learned that this board comes in at only $471, and that immediately made me reconsider. This board felt very premium when I was riding it, so knowing I could add a really fun quiver board at a reasonable price point makes it extremely tempting even for me. If you love swallowtail shapes, then you have to give this one a try.